Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Recovery Talk. So this week I'm going to talk about something that I thought I had covered previously, but just realized I haven't. I think I've covered it in an Instagram live, because I just remember having spoken about this before, but I realized I haven't actually covered it on my podcast. And this was also something that was highly requested when I asked you guys in Instagram stories what kind of topics you want me to cover. And that is rapid and disproportionate weight gain in eating disorder recovery. What is it? Why does it happen? And how do you deal with it? Oh my God, I remember when I started my recovery, right? First of all, I gained a lot of weight very quickly, eating very little, which entered me into panic mode because I was thinking, this is proof my metabolism is broken, my body is broken, recovery is not working. If I keep increasing, I'm just going to gain a bunch of weight forever. It will never stop, blah, blah. I had all of these disordered thoughts that, of course, were not in touch with reality. But when you are in the thick of it, it feels very real. These delusions feel very, very real. But thank God I kept going because my worries did not come true. It felt like they came true in the beginning, but eventually, long term, it didn't come true. Eventually, my weight did stabilize, things did even out, things did slow down. So in this episode, I cover rapid weight gain in recovery and also disproportionate weight gain in recovery. So I will start with covering rapid weight gain in recovery. Okay, so I love my metaphors, right? Imagine you have a sponge, like a really dried out sponge. Remember when you were in school, or maybe some of you are still in school, when the teacher had like a sponge and it would just be like the driest sponge, and the teacher would try to go on the blackboard with the sponge and it was so dry and it made the most awful sound ever. No? Just me? Anyways, when you have a dried out sponge and you put it in water, it's gonna suck up all of the water pretty quick, right? Because it's so dried out. But it's not going to just keep sucking up water forever and ever and ever and just grow into like this gigantic sponge. It's kind of going to suck up water until it is at a water level it's comfortable with, it's holding an okay amount of water, and then it's kind of not going to just keep sucking up the water, right? Imagine if you put a sponge in a bucket of water and it just kept sucking up water until there was no water left in the bucket. That's not how sponges work. And this is a little bit how weight gain works in recovery. In the beginning, it's very, very common that because you're so starved that your body will kind of just hold on to the weight very quickly, and it can seem pretty drastic. But it's literally just your body trying to keep you alive. It is completely normal for weight gain to be rapid in the beginning. And also similarly to a sponge, your body does not only hold on to actual, body weight. So think body fat, muscles, putting on weight in places such as your bones and organs. Because yes, these things also can lose mass during starvation. But also, your body has a tendency to hold on to water weight in recovery. And this can create some very rapid fluctuations. And this can also look like there is a rapid change because essentially water retention, as I've spoken about in a previous episode, water retention tends to present a little bit differently than body fat. Water retention tends to be a bit more jiggly, right? And water retention has a tendency to disproportionately stay at the places where you don't want it to stay at, right? So you have the rapid weight gain due to you being undernourished, underweight, and your body, again, underweight relative to your body set point, if that's the case for you. Your body is holding on to the weight because it's so energy suppressed, because it is in starvation mode. It is holding on because your body essentially does not trust that you're not going to starve it again, right? And imagine you probably have a bit of a track record of starving your body, right? Whether that is through food restriction, excessive exercise, maybe purging, compensatory behaviors, etc., etc. So your body is kind of just preparing for the next period of famine, because that's what the body is detecting when you're restricting it. It is detecting that there's going to be another period of famine. And it would be a pretty natural survival mechanism to hold on to weight and prioritize weight gain when it can, right? So you have this, and then you have, as mentioned, the water retention. Your body tends to hold on to water, very, very common. And then, again, another factor coming in is that your body because you have been so energy suppressed, chances are your digestive system is not really running optimally, right? So slow digestion, food laying in your stomach system for longer, constipation, etc., very, very common. And also add in some bloating, and I just call it like the triad of recovery, like the panic triad. So the triad essentially being food in your stomach system and also the bloating part, rapid weight gain due to being undernourished/underweight, and also water retention. These like 3 things add like the panic triad of recovery, because all of these can add on the number on the scale, and it can also affect how your body looks like. You know, if you are very bloated, chances are your stomach is going to stand out a bit. If you're holding a lot of water, chances are you're going to feel maybe your hands or your thighs, or feels a little bit more like almost puffy, right? And even your face as well sometimes feels kind of, you don't feel very comfortable, right? And your eating disorder will confuse this for being just body fat. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with body fat. Body fat is amazing. Body fat is essential. It is great. And if you're someone who's under your set point weight, then yeah, that's something you need to gain. But not all of the weight that you gain in early recovery is body fat. That is just important to kind of clarify, even though your eating disorder will tell you that it is. So early recovery, chances are you're going to gain weight quicker in the beginning, eating not so much, because your body is so starved and it is just desperately holding on, trying to prepare itself for the new famine coming, right? But here's the thing. If you keep increasing, you do not go and return to restrictive behaviors, turn to, for instance, purging, excessive exercise, etc. You're actually teaching your body, hey, there is no famine coming. You can relax now. It's okay. Then what happens is that your body will eventually be like, oh, okay, fine. And it starts relaxing. It doesn't hold on to the weight in the same way. Yes, your body will still prioritize weight restoration, right? But it also will start prioritizing different things, such as, for instance, speeding up your metabolism, engaging in repair, right? Your body cannot afford to speed up the metabolism if you're giving it the bare minimum. Then instead it will just prioritize storing body weight until the next famine period, because your body is detecting there is still famine, right? You're not giving your body an abundance of food. The big mistake a lot of people in recovery make is that when they are experiencing this rapid weight gain early on, they take this as a sign that they should not increase, when actually it is a sign that they should increase, because it is a sign that you have been so metabolically suppressed, you've been so energy deficient, right? That is what this rapid weight gain signifies. But instead people panic and then think, well, this just shows that I should not keep increasing. And then turn to restrictive behaviors or stay at that intake and then wonder why recovery is not heading the way they want it to, right? And as I've spoken about before, it is completely possible to technically weight restore on a lower intake, but you're not necessarily getting all the benefits of recovery. I've spoken about this in a previous episode about why you should probably increase your intake in recovery, so do check that out. But what is so essential to be aware of is that the rapid weight gain in early recovery is a temporary thing. It is a response to you being extremely energy suppressed, and the solution is to keep increasing and keep going despite the panic. Will slow down when your body is realizing that there is no famine, right? You're not going to starve it. There's going to be food available at all times. If you're someone who's giving your body food, you know, you might have a period, have a day where you feed it, but then you restrict the next day. You're not telling your body that the famine is over, right? Your body is just going to be like, oh my God, we need to eat when food is available. We need to stay up weight when food is available because we're going to get starved again, right? So it's so important that you are consistently giving your body food over a period of time so that it can relax, so that it can trust you again, right? Because you're working on rebuilding that trust with your body. Remember, your body is just trying to keep you alive here, right? Imagine back in the days, a little bit of evolutionary psychology again, right? Imagine people when we were living in like tribe societies, when the majority of us was living that way, right? And there was a period of famine, right? It would make complete sense that when the body is detecting, okay, there is famine, and that it will start to put on and store weight as soon as it can when faced with more food. And the way to get out of that is, of course, to show your body that famine is over, food is available, it's consistently available, and then your body is going to relax, and then it's going to focus on the other things, right? Such as repair, restoring metabolism, etc., etc. So all of this makes complete sense. It just makes so complete sense. But of course, your eating disorder will try and creep in and tell you, no. This makes no sense. Why is this happening? You're wrong. This shows that recovery is not for you. But does your eating disorder have a track record of being right? Because is your eating disorder really a better source of information rather than basic evolutionary psychology? Your eating disorder, does your eating disorder defeat biology? Is your eating disorder that wise? No, it's not. Your eating disorder is actually a conspiracy theorist that is trying to kill you. So do not listen to it. Do not listen to it. You are not broken for gaining weight quickly in early recovery. Your body is doing exactly what it has been designed to do. And the solution is you've got to keep increasing. I know that feels wrong, but in recovery, doing what feels wrong is usually the right call. I remember in early recovery, I gained something like, I think I told you guys before, something like, 5 kilos in 5 days or so in early recovery, eating very little. Of course, I was thinking, well, this just shows recovery is not for me, right? But as I kept increasing, I needed, I think, something like 3 times that amount to gain just 0.5 kilo a week, which was the absolute bare minimum. If I had panicked and then ended up in some cycle of, recovery, restrict, right? That's a very common cycle. People might have one day where they're like, yeah, I'm going to commit to recovery, I'm going to eat. And then they notice rapid weight gain, panic, turn to restriction, and then they're like, okay, I need to recover. And then they turn to recovery and restrict, right? Staying in that cycle and wondering why it's not really working for them. Wondering why the metabolism is not speeding up, why they don't feel more free, why their weight gain is so rapid, why they fluctuate so much in weight, right? Again, your body is just doing what it's been designed to do. Show your body that famine is over by giving it a consistent amount of food over a prolonged period of time. And it will eventually turn off this starvation mode, this panic mode, this saving mode that it's been in. So a lot of people express in recovery that they are so terrified because they feel like they're only gaining body fat. And it is true that in the earlier stages of recovery, there tends to be disproportionately a slightly more amount of body fat. And this is simply because this is the most important thing to gain, right? Your body fat is an essential hormone-producing organ. It protects your internal organs, it keeps you warm, it is absolutely essential. That is what your body is going to prioritize at first. But then as you actually allow that to happen, allow your body to gain necessary body fat, it will start gaining other things as well. You start, for example, restoring muscle mass, gaining back some of lost bone density, if this has been a case for you. So basically, in early recovery, the percentage of weight gain that is body fat tends to be higher than later in recovery. And you can't just skip this stage, right? I know it's not something you want, but also remember that it is your eating disorder that has resistance towards this, right? It's the disordered part of you that sees body fat as such a negative thing. Okay, guys, so let's talk a little bit about disproportionate / uneven weight gain in eating disorder recovery. And when it comes to disproportionate weight gain in early recovery, there are several factors at play. Just like how I mentioned the triad with why you're gaining weight faster in early recovery and how this can, what kind of factors are behind this. The disproportionate weight gain also have different factors, mental and physical. So I wanted to kind of unpack this a bit and look at the different factors and what that means for you. So the first factor I want to mention is, the actual weight gain, right? The fact that it can be a bit disproportionate in early recovery. So why is this happening? Well, essentially, what tends to happen in early recovery is that your body will prioritize weight gain at the most important places. And this tends to be the abdominal area. I mean, this makes sense. This is the area where all your most important organs are, right? Your body wants to protect that. It is very, very common for your body, the weight gain, to go more towards that place in the beginning. Because, again, that is a more important place to gain weight than, let's say, your arm, right? Of course, this does vary. Some people may feel like their weight gain goes a lot to their arms in the beginning, right? But overall, it being slightly more in the abdominal area than, for instance, arm and back, etc., is pretty common. So as I mentioned, the abdominal area is an important area to gain weight, and it tends to be the one the body will prioritize in the beginning just because it is so important. But there are also other reasons why you might feel like the weight is disproportionate in your abdominal area. So, bloating. Bloating. So common in recovery. So you're bloated, maybe the food is moving slower through the stomach and system, and chances are that it's going to make your stomach stand out a bit. This is not necessarily body fat, it is bloating. But of course, your eating disorder will convince you that it is body fat. And then you also have water retention. Water retention has a tendency to really enjoy staying in the abdominal area, right? This can tie into bloating, holding on to water in the abdominal area. And also water retention sometimes enjoy being in your thighs, especially upper thighs. I personally noticed that. Not completely sure of why, but I'm thinking it could be because that is an area where we have a lot of muscles and that is trying to repair. I'm not completely sure. That was just my thought. I should probably research exactly why it tends to lay in that area. But again, just a thought. Water retention can also sometimes be in the hands, fingers. You might feel like your fingers feel a bit like almost puffy. Some people experience it in their feet. Face is also a common one. So if you feel like your face is looking a bit puffier, chances are you're experiencing some water retention. Please do check out the previous episode on water retention for more details on how to spot it and deal with it. So yeah, now you may have rapid weight gain that has tend to center in the abdominal area, and then you have bloating, and then you maybe have some water retention in that area as well. Of course, it can feel pretty disproportionate. But with this in mind, I also want to add the other factor at play here, and that is body dysmorphia. Yes, true. As I mentioned, factors like the ones I mentioned can really make it seem like the weight gain is somewhat disproportionate in the beginning. But also your body dysmorphia tends to really, really, really worsens this. You might feel like you are so disproportionate you don't even look human, whilst for someone else you kind of look completely normal. Like what? It's not really that visible. But your body, no, your head make it seem like your body is just like wrong, So the way you're seeing yourself in the mirror, the way you're observing your body is not necessarily in touch with reality. This means that someone may experience a slightly disproportionate weight gain in early recovery, but then their head will twist it out of proportions. So with all of these things in mind, you have the body dysmorphia and you also have certain physical factors that can actually make the weight gain a bit more disproportionate in early recovery. This can be difficult to deal with, right? So the approach that I tend to advocate for people is actually focusing more on body neutrality. Don't feel like you need to overanalyze your body. Accept that sometimes it might feel worse before it feels better and trust the process. Give your body time, give it rest, give it an abundance of food. Treat and look at your body with kindness and avoid body checking, avoid excessively looking in the mirror, excessively stepping on the scale. Instead, just see it as a bit of a renovation project, right? Your body right now is going through a major renovation. Would you judge a house in the middle of its renovation process? No, you will give it time, you give it work, and then you judge the final outcome. This is not to say that you can't have compassion and love for your body in recovery. Of course you can. But if you feel like you honestly just don't like your body, you don't feel comfortable, then that is completely okay as well. I don't want you to feel like you're failing recovery because you're not loving your body in this stage. Because realistically, it's pretty uncommon to be absolutely in love with your body when it's going through major changes like this. You can have love for your body, you can have respect for your body, but chances are your body image is maybe not going to be at its best. I remember when I went through this process myself, it was so terrifying because I just felt like I could not see what was in the mirror. What I saw in the mirror, like part of me knew that what I saw in the mirror was just not really what was in the mirror, right? I had such a twisted body image. I felt like everything went to my stomach and also my upper thighs. But especially my stomach. I was feeling quite bloated as well, and I felt like it had gone too fast. I felt like I couldn't keep up, and I had all of those thoughts and fears. But then there was a part of me that knew that I had to trust the process and keep going. And guess what? With time, it started evening out. It was almost like my body detected that it could afford to also gain, body fat at places such as my breasts, right? And also my body image became more realistic. I started seeing myself with different eyes. And equally, one thing that I really do want to remind you guys is that there is no right or wrong way to have a body. We all have different proportions, and I hear so many people with eating disorders who are convincing themselves that they just have a weird body shape or they're just disproportionate when actually they're not. Everyone has a different shape. And what you see on social media is very, very unrealistic and mostly edited. Not everyone is gonna look like, Hercules or look like Kim Kardashian after their recovery. We all have different shapes and sizes, and that's completely okay. The goal is to get to a point where you can accept your body where it's at, accept your body at its natural set point weight range, Essentially, you want to come to a space where you can look at your body as an instrument rather than an ornament. This does not mean that you can't appreciate your body and feeling good in your body and, enjoying how your body looks like and feeling sexy. That's amazing. But overall, at the end of the day, your body is an instrument. It is an instrument that takes you through life and allow you to live. So as much as a disproportionate, rapid, uneven weight gain in recovery is completely normal, also remind yourself that there is not necessarily something wrong with your body just because you don't have a specific body shape. We all have different, hair textures, eye colors, we're all different, and that's amazing. Imagine if we were all the same. Some people carry more body fat naturally in the abdominal area, other people carry more body fat in their thighs. That is just how human bodies work. But despite that, it is true that weight gain can sometimes be disproportionate in early recovery. 4 factors, as I've explained in this episode. So I hope this was helpful, guys. And now I'm going to take a listener question. So this person is someone who's had an eating disorder for 13 years and is now experiencing that their psychologist have set a goal weight of a very low BMI. I'm not going to share the exact BMI just in case that can be triggering for people, but it is an underweight BMI. And the person is expressing that they have been at a higher BMI than that and felt a lot freer at that weight. So now they're feeling a bit conflicted as to why their psychologist have given them such a low BMI as a goal weight. And they're essentially saying that, of course, the eating disorder is happy to be, quote unquote, allowed a lower goal weight, but part of them also knows that this is not sufficient for them. So yeah, this was basically a paraphrase, but let's get into it. Very, very often, treatment practitioners treat an eating disorder, especially if you've had an eating disorder for quite some time, as a chronic illness. And instead of working on full recovery, they're working on symptom management, aka essentially just keeping you alive. They think that if they set a goal weight that is actually healthy for you and your body, which is not an underweight BMI, but actually a BMI that is a lot higher than that, they think that you will not cooperate. They think they will scare you. They think you will just, ghost them and just not be part of the recovery process. And they think that you will not handle being at a higher weight. So I know this sounds brutal, but essentially they're kind of giving up on you in your recovery. And this is such a common frustration I hear from clients where they have a treatment team and the treatment team is, following them up, and just keeping them at check, but they're not pushing for recovery. They're not pushing for weight gain. And the problem is that then the person suffering, right, will think that, well, this just shows that it's okay for me to stay underweight. It is absolutely not. It is just that your treatment practitioner has kind of stopped trying for recovery because so many treatment practitioners see an eating disorder as a chronic illness. They think, oh, it's something you'll always have. It's something that'll never go away, which is false. It's just false, like completely false. Yes, it is hard to recover. Yes, not everyone recovers, but treating it as a chronic illness is just a huge disservice to the person suffering. So what to do here? I recommend in this case that you have a conversation with your psychologist and making it clear that you are looking for full recovery. Because chances are your psychologist has set this low goal weight because they have registered that you have not really been pursuing recovery, right? You said you've had it for 13 years. They're probably going to think, well, 13 years, why would you suddenly now recover, right? And that is so silly because eating disorder recovery, people will tend to have an eating disorder and then they won't recover even if they had it for a long time. I worked with people who've had eating disorders for 10, 20 plus years and are now pursuing recovery. But yeah, essentially make it clear to your treatment team, to your psychologist, that you're looking for full recovery and that you're actually okay with your body gaining to the weight range it is comfortable with. So essentially, you have to change the direction here. You have to turn the steering wheel so that you can change the direction in your treatment. Because right now, the track that you guys are driving in is maintenance and managing symptom and keeping you alive, but not having you fully live. I see this time and time again with clients that work with dietitians, and the dietitian have prescribed them a meal plan that is too low calories, but it is, it's an intake that keeps them alive, but it is not enough to fully recover. And then the client will think, well, this just shows that it's okay for me to stay at a lower intake. But I talk to dietitians. I know very well why they're doing this. They're doing this because essentially they're just trying to keep you alive. They're trying to collaborate with the client and meet them where they're at, which makes sense, right? It is a little bit like if someone is, for instance, addicted to drugs, giving them clean needles is a very common thing in some countries. This doesn't mean they don't have a drug addiction or that it is completely okay and without consequences to stay addicted, right? And that they shouldn't pursue recovery. It just means that they're working on safety and symptom management. And equally, in that case, if you're someone who's a drug addict, you have, I guess, the responsibility to express to your treatment team that, hey, instead of focusing on, just giving me clean needles, I am actually ready to pursue recovery and I'm ready to go to rehab and, get off drugs. So essentially, be aware of why this has happened. This is essentially your treatment team taking a different direction in your treatment where they are working on symptom management. You need to express to them that is you are going in a different direction now. You're pursuing full recovery. And then guess what? In the vast majority of cases, treatment practitioners will then be collaborative. They might not fully believe in you because they're like, well, it's been X amount of years and nothing has happened. And you can also kind of understand them from their side, right? They have seen you not recover for a long time, and part of them is probably like, why would you do it now, right? But this is where you have to believe in yourself. And you could also maybe find that finding a treatment team where you do feel like they believe in you could be helpful. If your treatment team is kind of given up on you, it could be good to kind of get a fresh perspective in, work with someone who truly believe in you. Remember, your treatment team is there to work with you, right? So if you feel like they are just not believing in you, not supporting you, they're validating your eating disorder, they're not pushing for recovery in the ways that you need, it is also okay to look for a new team. But equally, if that is not an option, or if it is simply because they moved to symptom management rather than recovery, then having the conversation with them could also be helpful. So many times I've spoken to people whose dietitian eventually gave them a low-calorie meal plan, and then I talked to a dietitian because we're working on increasing it, and they're just like, yeah, I mean, obviously the reason why I gave that lower meal plan was, again, just for the client to stay alive, right? To cooperate with the client, because I knew that they were not going to pursue recovery. I knew they were not going to eat more. So why even give them that meal plan? Why even try? Okay, guys, I hope that was an interesting episode, and I hope that it answered questions as well regarding low goal weights in recovery, because this is something that comes up a lot. Please remember why it happens. It does not mean that you are someone who can just stay at a too low weight for your body. And remember, even if you feel like your treatment practitioners don't believe in you, never stop believing in yourself. I work with so many people who've essentially been given up on by the treatment practitioner. Essentially just told, yeah, you're a chronic case, you're never going to recover. And I've seen them put in work and turn their lives around. I will never stop believing in people in recovery. It don't even matter if someone has had an eating disorder for 1 year or 20 years. I still believe in people's ability to recover. This does not mean that it's easy. This does not mean that everyone will recover, but it means that I never stop believing in recovery. I think if I did, I shouldn't be doing the job that I'm doing right now. Believing in people and never giving up on people is just such a key part of my profession and my core value in how I view eating disorders and recovery. And I hope you can give yourself the same view, give yourself the same compassion and have the same faith in yourself. Okay, guys, have an amazing day ahead, and I'll talk to you guys next week.